Hi, and welcome to Divinely Empowered with Antonia. Today we have Jess, who has been channeling both Kistos, the Pleiadian, and Jesus. So this is the debrief post-sesh. How you feeling?
It's a lot. It's a lot to be bringing through two different consciousness in one go. So to sort of break that down a little bit, I directly channel a seventh dimensional Pleiadian called Kistos. And today we asked him to help us to bring through the consciousness of Jesus or Yeshua so that we could ask some questions. So he connected with that consciousness so that he could bring that information through us. So Jesus wasn't directly speaking through me, but he was using my guide to convey some information for us.
So what do you think some of the most important things that we learned today are?
I think one of the key aspects is that consciousness, so the energy of Jesus is very present amongst us at the moment. There are lots of people who are learning how to connect with that and feel that deep, compassionate, high frequency, unconditional love energy, and bringing that into our consciousness at the moment at a time where it's crucial for us to be able to tune into that energy so that we can awaken and move into a higher kind of dimension.
Well, they said there's going to be a challenging next 18 months. So what do you think is going to happen over the next 18 months?
They did, yes. They've said before that between now and about 2027 is going to be the opportunity for the biggest level of awakening and the biggest ascension in consciousness that we've had since the fall of, or since the peak of Atlantis and Lemuria before it fell. So that's a big cycle to be coming back around. I think that's why we're getting a lot of ascended masters, high frequency beings coming through and giving us some guidance at the moment. I think we're going to see a lot of increase in some of the polarizing aspects that we're experiencing at the moment, which I know is not something that's welcome to most people, but I think it is happening because it's a purge of everything that is no longer in alignment with where we're going to, and that all has to come to the surface and be released in order for us to move up in our level of ascension.
Well, they also came up with that not everyone's going to make it into the 5D. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that was a strange one because, well, not strange, but an interesting one, because about a year ago when I channeled on this, they said that although they're usually able to read what's going to happen in the collective very easily, this particular situation, our human situation of our elevation of consciousness, was something that they were actually a little bit more ambiguous on, because they had never seen this before, either on our planet or any other one, where when there is a shift where not everyone moves, and they could see that there is this difference between the trajectory of the energy of some humans and others. And their hope is that we will all collectively move up, because when we move into a higher frequency, we create more expansion and we create further consciousness for the universe to continue to expand. So it's in the interest of all beings in the cosmos when that happens. But they've said they don't exactly know how it's going to play out in terms of the energy of the universe if this split occurs. But they have said that those that remain in third dimension doesn't mean that anything bad's going to happen to them. They're just not necessarily going to move into this kind of maybe more blissful stage where we have more abilities that we're not currently tuning into quite so much yet. And that those that do remain, it's their choice to remain.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are possessed by demons at the moment. I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of behavior where people are blacking out, they're not knowing what they're doing, they're behaving like they're just being very vindictive and, just generally evil. There's some nastiness just around the collective, and people are getting very obsessive. No one can have conversations, no one can talk without getting totally triggered and then going into a narrative. And I worry about those people and whether they're actually going to be able to ascend, because I think they'll need to get those demons out of them before they can go up to the next level. So I think there'll be a lot of people who are very lost at the moment who may end up staying lost.
I think that's what a lot of this purge kind of era is, though. A lot of the events that are happening are triggering people in a way, and maybe a lot of that depends on their self-reflection, whether they're able to actually see that there's something within themselves that needs to be healed, or whether it's naturally going to
but it's everybody else's fault. That's the problem. It's your fault that I'm upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that the energies that are coming through at the moment, and some of the astrological events that we've experienced, and like the frequency of Gaia is changing in alignment with this too. But the other key thing, obviously, that they spoke about today was that they anticipate there are going to be some events forthcoming very soon. I think we're talking within like 6 to 8 months, if not less, that are going to really snap some people.
Well, we did a little bit of a private session afterwards, and we were being told, or should we tell them the secret stuff? No, let's tell them a little bit of the secret stuff. Apparently, we're going to be learning, there's going to be some things which are going to wake us up. There may be some ETs actually coming in the physical to come and say hello to us within the next 3 years. They said 3 to 5 years, but closer to 3 and possibly before that. But also some things are going to be changing. Like we are going to suddenly have abilities, like we might be able to get a cloud to dance in a certain way or to move and to configure it. And once we realize that we affect reality and we can actually manifest and change things and change our environment specifically, then abilities are going to drop through, because we suddenly have that, we'll understand it on a very visceral level, and then abilities will start to come through a bit more because we've had that experience in that way. So then a lot more people are going to get their abilities.
And they said that there would be certain things that we would see and experience that we feel that we're not able to understand or explain, that will be so profound that they will trigger a shift in consciousness for anyone that's still kind of holding on, who maybe at soul level does want to move into the ascension, but at their awareness of reality at the moment has no concept of it yet.
I think they're going to be undeniable.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they are. And it's interesting because we're seeing like a lot of, there seems to be a resurgence in spirituality, and some of it is really kind of within the conventional spiritual paradigms.
Christianity is taking a huge surge,
but then there's a lot of fighting between different religious groups, and that's something that we actually, we haven't really experienced a lot of that for a long time, because we've been in such an atheist, science-based society.
Science is a religion.
But now there's this kind of resurgence in that, which is causing more polarity. And I do feel like maybe from the indications that they've given when I've channeled, that there are going to be things that will snap us into realizing the whole thing is a spiritual experience, and one particular narrative doesn't make you more spiritual or make you more connected.
I just wonder how that's going to, people are like dogged atheists and they're just stuck in that, rather than agnostic. Agnostic, fine, you don't know which way to go, but atheists, and you're saying no. I think with ETs coming, or abilities coming, or people stepping into their Christ consciousness, if you are very grounded and attached to the 3D, that is going to freak the hell out of you. And I don't know if people are going to want to be around. They'll be like, no, la, la, la. And maybe they're going to,
that could be part
of, there's going to be a lot of exiting,
Yeah. And I think that could be part of the rockiness that we'll see over the next 18 months. If we have something particularly triggering in a short time now, then that timeline sort of plays out that we could see a lot more chaos as people are like snapped into. Do they go along with this, or do they decide that they don't want to experience that as a reality?
I also wonder about the whole abortion thing. And, if people suddenly start believing in God, if they haven't ever believed in God before, and then they change their, I don't know, like people are saying that it's not a life until it's born. I don't know I think it's a conception. That's my personal opinion of it. But if you've had 12 abortions, and then, but you don't believe in God, and you don't believe it's until the baby is born that it actually is a real person, then and then you suddenly have a relationship with God, and then suddenly you think, is that spark of creation actually when? How are people going to feel? And how's, if a lot of people have been using contraception as a birth control. That has been something. I've got a friend who's had 12 abortions, so I know that from a friend experience, and I know that's happening in various different places. So if you suddenly have an experience of God when you didn't think God was real, I think that's going to cause a lot of despair.
Yeah, I think it will. But I think a lot of those things become necessary for our awareness to be able to
but I think they're going to lose their minds.
Well, some might,
I think that's going to be very, very tough pill to swallow. It's all okay if you don't believe in God. If you do believe in God, that gets a bit of a sticky situation.
Yeah, I mean, if we're the thing is, if we're shown something that shows us that we are all one energy that is interconnected. So my understanding from the Pleiadians and from insights that I've received through meditation as well is that essentially we are all that divine spark, and we just choose the different places that we wish to incarnate to have different experiences, and we feed the other parts of our soul group throughout our experiences. So if you jump to the idea of one particular God, and follow the kind of doctrine that comes through Christianity and more organized religions, then yes, that could definitely put you into a state of guilt or fear or worry over having an abortion, or over the concept of what happened to that soul. But when you understand that we are one wholly connected energy, just having separate experiences, I'm not taking away the individual experience of being human, because I think that is not helpful either. But when you understand that we are a collective energy that's choosing to have conscious experiences, then maybe that puts a slightly different perspective on it, because it's not that soul has been lost. It's that almost that you have had that experience in order to learn something about yourself and about the way that you maybe have negated your spirituality, and it needs to be something that's brought back into your life. So I think a lot of the negative things that we experience are sometimes necessary triggers, possibly
I think
always leading up to this
I think
moment.
that, and I think that you are probably right, and I think that's stage 2 or stage 3. I think that oneness, I don't think that will be the initial experience that people have. I think yours is more of an
and it's like opinion. Anyone that has an awakening experience, usually you go through sort of turmoil, confusion, chaos, like you go through the dark night, the soul, despair. I mean, hopefully for a lot of people, particularly because there's more advice and guidance on spirituality now that is accessible to more people, you can have an awakening without going through that. But quite often, as we know, you do go through the dark night of the soul, and you go through the maybe lack of value of your own life at times.
Well, I mean, the other side of it as well is, there are some very extreme people who are brutal to other people in the name of their God. And then it's going to be very interesting, because if some of these aliens do come and say hello, what's going to happen to people who are very indoctrinated into a particular religion? How are they going to cope if suddenly there are some like angelic beings in the flesh or or able to be seen, and then suddenly it's like, was your organized religion a load of rubbish? Was it true?
And I wonder if that's where the split will, like whether that might be one of the parts on, because the Pleiadians have said they don't know exactly whether we're all going to move up or not. So a lot of it maybe is dependent on the reactions at that time. And that's why, because they read the future by the energetic trajectory. So they're talking about the most likely timeline that we're going to move into. But when there is so many varying factors, and we're in such a kind of melting pot situation, that produces so many more multiple timelines that could actually play out. And they are really interested in this, and they have said that this is why not just the Pleiadians, there are multiple aspects of the galactic community that are interacting with Earth at the moment, because they want to give us the most opportunity that they are permitted to give to have that chance to step into higher consciousness and guide us as much as they can.
It's an interesting one. So watch the interview. Watch what our channeling with Jesus and Kistos that we did earlier. So enjoy, everybody.
Thanks. Bye. I don't know, there's a lot of angelic frequency beings around.
Okay.
And I feel like the presence is here. I don't think he's going to move in and directly speak, but I think I can connect with the consciousness. I think that presence is actually here. The Pleiadians are kind of... Kistos is basically saying that he is energetically linked with Yeshua's consciousness, and so he can kind of... It's almost like a...
He can channel through.
Yeah, channel through and then channel through me.
Okay.
So he can share thoughts with Yeshua?
Yes. So we're going to have a conference call.
Yeah. The Zoom with Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You ready?
Just give me a second for Kistos to come in, then he'll say when I'm fully connected.
Okay, then I'll do the intro.
Okay.
In case we use it, I don't know. Just film extras.
I'm having to do some extra protection stuff. I think there's a lot of negative, like low frequency beings that get attracted when you try and open up with Jesus.
Oh, that makes sense.
I think that's why the angelic stuff's here right now.
Also, I've got wings and a halo, so maybe they're like my brothers and sisters come to say hello.
I'm just going to call in Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
He's already here, but just bring that awareness that protection's here.
Yeah.
For this channeling.
Cool.
Let's keep it really safe.
I like Michael.
Big Mike.
No, that's something different entirely.
I know. Okay, right, I'll get serious now. Okay, Kistos is waiting.
And he's like, fuck's sake, Jess. You just stop fucking around, please. I'm waiting for you. I have other shit to do.
Oh, God, loads of people to talk through. Yeah, it's a different kind of discussion we're going to have with you today. This is a good opportunity for us to work through a different consciousness too. What questions do you have for this being that has played so many parts in the stories and the systems that you have developed as humans?
Well, welcome to Divinely Empowered with Antonia. Today we have Jess and we will be working with Kistos, and Kistos will also be channeling Christ. So we have some interesting questions today. So thank you for being here, Kistos. Okay, we have some nice questions. So where is Christ from? Is he Pleiadian or where is he from?
So he was a physical being born on your planet into a human body, but the aspect of him that is non-human is Pleiadian. This was a deliberate insemination process, and not a hybridization, as some of you are familiar with. This was a more organic process. So his mother was able to energetically open up and connect with Pleiadian beings, which she did not perceive as being that at the time, but she was able to perceive very light, high frequency and benevolence from these beings. So the story that you have about a messenger coming and telling her that she was going to conceive, that was from the Syrian system, but anticipating her connection with Pleiadian beings.
That was Gabriel. Is Gabriel from Sirius?
There are more than one being that you perceive as Gabriel. There are many that have worked through and presented themselves in this manner so that you recognize it as a benevolent being that is here to help you. So this idea of conception was more of a physical process than just an embryo appearing and forming. An energy was brought down and through into the body.
In a meditation process or a sex process? How was he conceived?
No, it was through this process happened whilst the mother was sleeping. She was aware that it was going to happen, or had been warned that it was going to happen, but was not consciously engaged in this process, in the sense that she did not have any awareness or feeling of the physical thing actually happening.
So did she have to do preparation and meditation? Because there's stories within Tantra that there were Tantra techniques where you can merge two consciousnesses together and then form another consciousness from it.
Yes, so she was able to maneuver herself into very high, what you would perceive as trance-like states, where her frequency was greatly lifted. And there are humans amongst you that are still able to lift into that high frequency, although there are few, and it is difficult for most of you, especially to retain that state. So she had done a lot of preparation work, and actually this is something that she had been working on from childhood. She was part of a lineage of women who were able to alter their states of consciousness greatly. Some of you might perceive that now as being something like a priestesshood, although it was less in a position of servitude to a specific god or being. So she had prepared her energetic body in a way that could support this kind of interaction, this kind of energy coming through and into her, enough to create physical manifestation. Because essentially this process is just the physical manifestation of conscious thought. But it takes a lot for most humans to be able to override their perception of material density enough to make such a physical manifestation actually occur. And that's something that these women were able to do. There were others before this who had done the same process. And some of that is where some of your stories that mirror the conception of Yeshua come from. And why it is not just coincidence. So there is this idea that Christianity was copying the stories of other older religions. There is some truth behind that, because there was some manipulation later in terms of how the story was relayed. But the being and presence and consciousness of Yeshua is still connected to some more ancient beings who had been conceived in a similar way. That consciousness is all interconnected, and there have been instances of this that have happened since, but particularly in your recent history, you do not realize that some of these conception processes that have happened have come from beings from other star systems, because you have birth control, and it is less common for a woman to have only had one partner. Therefore, they may think that it's happening from somewhere else, but there have been other instances of this kind of conception. Not all beings that are born from that demonstrate the abilities that Yeshua has, but many of them do, especially when the mother has consciously chosen to lift their frequency and studied and prepared themselves in a way that they can actually take the energy of a being from another star system and allow it to integrate with their own physical body. See, many of you are able to work with the energies of beings from star systems and channel energy from source, but few of you are able to combine the physical human body with a physical aspect of a being from another star system.
Can women create babies without men?
So essentially, this is what this process is. There is usually involved the entity of another place. It is not that there is absolutely no male biological interaction whatsoever. There needs to be something to trigger the formation of life, but you would perceive it as being created without a man because this is without a human male interaction. And the beings from other star systems that are able to perform this task, from some places they have very male bodies, which is how you would perceive it as a human. But some are, and this is such as the energy creating Yeshua, are much less in a physical form. So it is working with the energy of the being from this different star system in order to change the perception and vibration of a consciousness so that it can observe something as being created from nothing. So yes, they can, but it takes a great ability to use very high frequency energy in order to change the quantum physics, is how many of you would perceive it, of reality. You're altering a reality so that something can be created just by energy. A physical form can be created just by energy. And that is not something that many humans can really do on their own yet. They are using beings from higher vibrations, from higher frequencies and varying dimensions in order to bring enough energy through to be able to alter the physical reality without something that is seen as being a physical object from the planet Earth.
Is Jesus coming back?
The consciousness is here, it's present, not a physical form, a physical body. It's not necessary. It's able to do more in terms of helping you as a collective by bringing his consciousness through with many other beings as he is doing.
Will we have all of Jesus's ascended abilities?
That's where you're maneuvering to as a species, yes.
Did Jesus choose to be crucified?
No, not everything always goes to plan. With the human experience, we have seen multiple occasions where we have possibly interfered with you with your consent, but to do something which we believe would help the planet, it's not always worked out. We are able to perceive the way that things are likely to go with energy, but it doesn't always give us exact outcomes. It was slightly experimental. And at the time of this situation, you were dealing with reptilians on your planet. And beings that were much lower in frequency, not just them, the beings that you perceive as demonic from realms that are from very low vibrations, were also here and also working through many of your world leaders just as they are now. And you are still having people being sacrificed now in order to create more of a state of fear, because it creates a state of control. You have experienced this recently. Many of you are aware of seeing assassinations and mass killings of people. And this is essentially a sacrifice. It generates a lot of energy. It creates a lot of energy by those who wish to use energy in negative and manipulative ways, because it puts all of your focus onto the darkness. And that is essentially what happened to Yeshua. But he did not plan for that to happen. He did not enjoy that experience, but was able to regenerate his body in a way that a regular human is not capable of doing. You see, when you have a strong hybridization, whether it is a hybridization that has occurred through a biological interference, i.e., a human being has been taken and biologically altered, or whether it is from a conception that has been achieved through that very high frequency, there are some differences. So when it is a biological interference from another star system, there are upgrades to the DNA, to the consciousness, to the telepathic capabilities and communities, and some alteration to what that being is then able to do to their physical body. So they're able to heal faster, for example. But in terms of actually, so to come back to life is to alter a reality. And that is something that will only come from a being that is not just interfered with, is actually part of a different star system. Because essentially, as a Pleiadian in the seventh dimensional frequency, we are able to choose whether to take a physical body or be in a light body. And really, this idea of being risen is moving the physical body. The state has been extinguished, the light body comes out, but is then able to create a new physical body. So it's not that the old body comes back to life, it is that the being is able to create a new physical body. But usually that is a state that is only able to be held temporarily, because it's in such a contrast with then the energy of the human experience. So the lower frequency of the human dimension means that that light body can only hold this physical form for a short time before then needing to ascend or being trapped and stuck.
Right. Did all of Jesus's healings work?
They did, but it was not just him. There were others that were working through. He was able to transfer certain energy to others, and they were able to help him to hold the field of those he was working with. So this is the same as any human who has the ability to heal others. The person being healed needs to be receptive to the healing. And so what you had around Jesus was a group of beings who were able to help to hold that higher frequency. So they would kind of work with the communities of people who were seeking healing, to hold that energy up so that the individual people could be receptive to the healing. And also there was a balance between male and female energy there that is often left out of your stories.
Who was Mary Magdalene?
So this is to do with the balance of the male and female energies, because the body of and the consciousness of Yeshua is this mixture of a human with a consciousness, with a high frequency energy that took form. There was a density missing to it. So this other being, this woman, is drawn into integration with Yeshua so that he was able to remain on the physical plane and have the physical parts of himself activated and be able to step into harmony of the masculine and feminine energies. So, whilst within a regular human, when there's been no interference or physical change from another star system, you hold the masculine and feminine energies within the body and they interweave. You often have slight imbalance. One will be more predominant than the other. But in the case of Yeshua, he was not really either a masculine or a feminine energy. It is all one. But by bringing the woman in, you create a masculine and a feminine energy. And this anchors in to the more dense experience of being human and was necessary in order for his energy to be able to move through into a human person. So essentially, she is the activation of the healing powers because she is the conduit that alters the frequency enough that it can mix with the human body.
Was Jesus born with his abilities, or did he have to cultivate them? Did he travel to learn? How did it all develop?
He was born with the abilities, but he had to learn. He had to remember, the same as many of you as humans do. He had to remember that he was more than just a physical form, and have those direct experiences. But they began very, very young for him. He was able to have that connection from infancy and then would just step in and out of the human version of himself. But most of the time he was highly aware that he had a different makeup to many of the other humans.
What was Jesus's first miracle?
He brought a lamb back to life when he was a child.
Was that before the mud? In the Quran, they talk about using mud and making a bird and it flying away. Was it before that?
Yes, he was maybe 3 or 4.
Oh my goodness. What other notable miracles did Jesus perform which didn't make it into the Bible?
He says that he could make light appear. And this was something that he was able to do from very, very small. He could be in a place of darkness and create light from his hand. And it was, he is explaining this with excitement of a child because he plays with his friends and they could play tricks. And in their young youthfulness, they do not see this as something unusual other than something their friend could do and they could not do, and they'd have fun with it. So run around and play tricks on people, suddenly create these lights and create light without fire, which was something they had not seen before. What else? He had much deeper understanding of how to manipulate water. From many of you are familiar with the idea of walking on water, but the manipulation of water was something that he was able to do again from very young. We see about 6 years old. He could put his hand into a channel of water and part the water.
Water bending.
Yes.
Okay. Was Jesus's mission a net positive?
Yes. But there has been much that humans have used in a manipulative way that we did not anticipate necessarily would happen. We say humans often work through from different entities as well. So as we have said, we have made mistakes before. But the wholeness of the consciousness was always set. That timeline was never not meant to happen. So his coming back round at a time when consciousness needed to move to its next level was not coincidental. And the time that he came and chose to live was a long time after the fall of your last peak of civilization. So he came in at a very, very dark time and did create some lift in that time. And much of the human experience, it depends on what else you observe going on around that time. So you may look back at biblical times and think of it as a time of great struggle, of great fear. But those who lived at that time, some would see it like that, but many others wouldn't. Many others were living in a highly spiritual capacity. So there is always a combination of both within the human experience.
Okay. Is Armageddon or the harvesting coming, and when? And what will it look like?
You're not all about to die and fall off the planet.
Good.
There is this shift into a different dimensional consciousness, into different frequency consciousness. You are going to have a challenging 18 months or so, and you're going to experience, if you pay your attention to it, more turmoil on your platform of the world stage. And wherever you choose to put your consciousness, you will experience more of. There will be some who won't move into the fifth dimension. We weren't sure of this to begin with. There is still the potential for certain beings to shift and move into higher frequency, but we can see this idea of this split, that it is quite likely that there is going to be two dimensions to the planet Earth that weren't previously there. So there are multiple dimensions within your planet as it is at the moment, but humans are usually consciously aware of the third, and many are becoming aware of the fourth and the fifth. And we've been waiting to see whether the third is going to join the fifth, if you're going to all collectively move up into that higher frequency and be able to remain there. We think that there will be some who will be jumping in between the two. For a lot of the time, they will have a confusing reality, because they will, for one minute, be feeling that everything is rosy and very easy, and the next feeling in despair.
Oh, God.
But most will ascend into the fifth dimension of consciousness. But we do see now, we were hoping that all would move into the fifth dimension of consciousness, but we think that some will remain in the third. And we don't know how this is going to affect the galactic energy of the rest of the cosmos.
What percentage of people will move and what percentage will stay?
We can't tell you that yet. We are still waiting to see whether this energetic trajectory is the one that you even remain with. We are hoping that your trajectory moves so that the whole of humanity, not one, is left behind. But there is some who are choosing not to allow their consciousness to rise. We are not even sure yet whether these are beings who are all completely human, or whether some of them, it is because they are connected very strongly to denser beings. So they're in a human form, human body, but they are connected to much more density and choosing not to rise. And they want you to do the same.
Will there be a solar flash?
Hard to say.
Okay. What does Jesus talk about reincarnation?
He knows this. He is part of many soul groups, as you all are. He does not see himself in a different position in that sense. Just knows that when he incarnated here to your planet, he was able to do different things because he had different makeup to the rest of you. But yes, you all reincarnate in the sense that you all have multiple experiences in multiple places and multiple timelines. But he understands the nature of it is not cyclical, that is all continuing at once.
Did Jesus download, and how did he download?
You mean receive information from source?
And receive abilities, or were they all there when he was born?
Well, so the idea that he had to go and relearn he had to remember that he had the abilities. They were all there right from the start, as they're all there with most of you now. But you have to learn how to move your density, your mind out of the way so that you can allow reality as it is. As you perceive reality, certain things are not possible. But once you learn to shift your perception of reality, then you unlock the abilities. He was just able to do this easier in his human experience because he has a stronger remembrance and connection to source, because he is part high frequency being. So the high frequency being, the higher in the frequency a being is, the closer it is to source energy, essentially. So it has less separateness from source energy, less difficulty in making that connection. So for him, it was much easier.
So he wasn't bedridden having to download energies or anything like that?
No.
Okay. What is the purpose of a halo?
This is an aura.
Is it not different to an aura?
It shows where the crown chakra is very activated.
Are they not all around the whole body?
The aura is around the whole body, but when the crown chakra is particularly activated, it appears as light from the top of the head.
Okay, right. I think we're going to go on to some private questions now. So thank you everyone for joining us at home, and we'll keep recording and ask questions for me.